Baby spends most of the time sleeping. Most of the children's actions are reflexive in nature. That is, they are stimulated, motivated, or triggered by some external stimuli. The child understands the environment purely through inborn reflexes, such as rooting, sucking, swallowing, grasping, palmar grasp, plantar grasp, stepping, Moro's reflex, etc. Over the period of 1 month, these reflexes become voluntary actions. Child understands some of the information receiving through his senses. He is learning to react to stimuli such as light, movement, sound, voice, etc. His greatest stimuli comes from looking at your face. Baby loves focusing on your face as much as you love gazing at hers. Actions first discovered incidentally are later repeated intentionally and applied to new situations to obtain the same results. These actions are repeated because the child finds them pleasurable. The focus is still on his body. The child becomes more object oriented. That is, he starts taking more interest in the objects and people around him, moving beyond from self preoccupation. The child has not yet acquired object permanence. That is, when an object is taken away from the child's sight, he acts as if the object ceased to exist. The child doesn't consider the object as permanent or separate from him. The child is only aware of what is in front of him, what he sees, does, or his interaction with his immediate environment. He is not interested in an object for the object's sake. The child has the ability to form mental images of the objects around him. From the knowledge what can be done with the object. The object itself is irrelevant, but what can be done with it is more important. The child yet doesn't know how things react, therefore, constantly experimenting with activities such as shaking, throwing, putting things into his mouth. Thus, learning about the world through trial and error. During this stage, knowledge about the ways in which the objects can be manipulated is acquired. Through the acquisition of knowledge about the self and the world, people and object in it, the child begins to understand how one thing cause and affect the other and begins to understand the simple ideas about time and space. 8 to 12 months of age is known as coordination of secondary circular reactions. It is also known as coordination of vision and touch, eye hand coordination. This stage is primarily associated with the coordination between means and ends. This stage marks the beginning of goal orientation and deliberate planning of steps to meet the objective. The child may also combine schemas in order to obtain desired results. At around 8 or 9 months, the child is more interested in objects for the object's own sake. Before this, the child is able to form mental images of the objects around them from the knowledge of what can be done with them. Object is not important, but what can be done with them is more important. By the end of this stage, the child sees the object as separate and permanent. The child differentiates the object from the self and recognizes self as the doer of action. This is the stage of tertiary circular reaction in which children experiment with new behavior. This stage is primarily associated with discovery of new means to meet an objective. Children at this stage are young scientists conducting pseudo experiments to discover new methods of meeting challenges. For example, a child makes different sounds or action as a way of getting attention from the caregiver. This stage is early representation stage. Children begin to develop symbols, images, and pictures to represent events or objects of the world as they acquired object permanence. They begin to understand the world through mental operations rather than purely through actions. Thus, during the sensory motor stage, the child acquires the knowledge and understanding of the world through sensory experiences and manipulating objects. Babies are unable to consider anyone else's needs, wants, or interests. Therefore, they are considered to be egocentric.